This is a word to the wise when it comes to a post-closing occupancy agreement between the buyers and sellers after closing day. We commonly call it a rent-back agreement, where the seller has closed and the buyer has signed off and the buyer has delivered with all the money. And now the seller wants 5 or 10 days to stay in the property while they put their stuff together and move. My warning is the best practice is get out. Don't stay in the property after closing. It makes everything a lot cleaner. The buyer's done their walkthrough. You've negotiated any dings in the house that need to get fixed or paid for, and you're done. But now you're going to stay there for a couple of weeks. You are in a post-occupancy agreement, and you've agreed to how much money you're going to pay to the buyer now, who's the new owner. And it can come up with a lot of problems, but there are some pros. Here are the pros. It gives the seller time to pack and move, and it also helps the buyer to get time to pack to move. It prevents any surprises at the last minute. Let's say that you did pack and you're all ready and you got your truck loaded, and then the buyer's financing falls out. This is not a fantasy. I've seen it happen many, many times where a buyer really wants to buy the house and suddenly their financing falls out, or their cold feet become freezing. And suddenly they want to pick something else out to not go to closing. And so having gone to closing and having a rent back could be beneficial to everyone to make sure you really want to close it, you closed it, and now I can move out a few days later. Now here's the cons. The cons of it, of what I just described earlier, are that there's a lot of disagreement that can pop up. The seller doesn't leave or leaves late. Yes, that can happen. I've seen it happen, and it's not a pretty sight. And so the seller says, I need to stay longer. Well, the buyer's like, hey, wait a minute. I've got everything lined up to be there on day number 5, and you need to stay till day 7. And so they're kind of squatting in their own house, and it can cause problems and cause legal issues. The seller damages the house on the way out. Big ding in the wall, or they break a window, or the storm door comes off, and now there's damage to the house that wasn't there during the initial walkthrough. Conflict about the buyer wanting to get bids for vendors. They want to come in while they're there for a week. The seller's just trying to pack up and get out. They don't want people tramping through the house to help the buyer get stuff ready for their move-in date. And so there's this conflict that goes on. I see it regularly where buyers and sellers can't play nice together, but that's just the way it is. Hidden defects that were not seen during the walkthrough, now that everything is moved a week later, and now the buyer comes in and now they see the cigarette stain on the carpet, and now they see the big hole that was behind the picture, and the seller's like, hey, we're done with closing, so that's the way it is. I want my deposit back. But that's what brings into an argument with the deposit and who's going to pay for what, and that's when they want to drag in the agents to finish out the transaction. The transaction was done on closing day. Now you've got a quasi landlord-tenant situation, and the seller and the buyer need to talk with each other about what they need to get done to make sure that it's okay for the buyer to return that deposit back to the seller. Know your deadlines. People think, well, I'll get a 7-day lease back from the buyer, and then I'll leave on the 7th day. That's the deadline. But let's say they leave 2 days earlier. They leave on day 5. That's fine. But in our contract in Virginia, they are still on the dime for 2 more days. They still got to pay the money for the rent. They still got to pay the utilities. So make sure you understand the deadlines and what that means for both parties. Be clear on the utilities. Make sure that the buyer has lined it up with the utility company that I'm going to be taking over on day number 7, and the seller is going to be releasing it on that same day. And sellers, do not shut it off early to save 10 cents, okay? Having the appliances off, having the furnace off, having the air conditioner off in the hot season, this just causes a lot of animosity, and it can cause a lot of damage to the property if you don't have these running for like 2 or 3 days because you turned it off too soon. Make sure your insurance coverages are in place between the buyer and seller. You both need to have insurance policies. Sellers, don't dump your insurance policy because you're no longer the owner, but just make sure all those things are lined up, that you have your utilities ready, the deadlines are understood, and that you're understanding, I'm going to deliver this to the buyer in the same condition I would want it delivered to me. So if I burn something in the kitchen, if I tear something on the floor, if I scrape the floor, Yes, I've sold it to them, but I wouldn't want it delivered to me. So I'm going to make sure I deliver that to them in as good condition. That's my take on the rent back. As you can tell, I'm not a big fan of it because I get pulled in as a broker many times to referee between everybody. And I just make sure when I do it with my own deals that everyone definitely is on the same sheet of music. If you like the channel, please like it. Please share this video to someone that needs to hear about it, and subscribe to the channel. Most of the folks that watch my videos don't subscribe, so I'd appreciate it if you would ding that bell and say, give me all the notifications.